getting a chance to get out there for an hour and a half, handle the elements, learn from it, those are great teaching lessons for us going into, for practice 6. That's exactly what I was looking for. So, again, as you talk about putting your football team together and developing your team, these are the kind of moments that in a, small, looking at it from a smaller perspective, a micro perspective, these are the days I need to develop the things that we need from our football team. So good day out there today from that perspective. Our guys are doing a great job taking care of themselves, injury-free. So all positives moving into tomorrow's 2-hour practice. So questions?
Brian, with that in mind, that micro perspective that you're talking about, we look at the offensive line and we see issues, right? What are you looking at? What do you see that's positive? What do you see some things that need to be worked on? And how much of it is the collective versus the individual?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, look, when we go into these scrimmage situations, just so you can hear my perspective, I'm much more interested in, the evaluation, not the congratulations. This is evaluating what are the things on our football team that we need to get better at individually, collectively, as a unit, offense and defensively. I'm not looking for guys getting patted on the back saying, well, what a great scrimmage. It's one. I want to be able to evaluate. And today, for me, is a great evaluation day. I was able to glean some things through our work today that allows me to help our coaches continue the evaluation process. So it's both. It's individually, it's collectively as a unit, and then, as an offense and defense.
Well, I guess the follow-up to that, you say you gleaned some things. What were sort of the things that you learned from today's practice specifically?
That keeping you guys out there for an hour and a half is not smart. We've got to work on getting you guys in the cold tubs and air conditioning, sandwiches. Maybe we'll bring some beer in, little barbecue. We got to keep it a lot lighter for you guys because I can imagine how these stories are going to sound today, because you're all pissed off. No, I mean, I think, we have some young players, right, that for the first time they were pushed to their limit, from a mental standpoint, not a physical standpoint. And then how did they react accordingly, right? We had some guys that were put in the moment and made a lot of mistakes. So it allows us to take a step back. When you're running around out there with your underwear on and nobody's touching you, it's easy, right? Everything's great. Then you get into competitive situations late in practice. It's really hot. We created this situation purposefully, right? We wanted it late. We wanted it hot. And some guys need to continue to grow mentally. And there's not a physical problem out here. This is much more about technical and mental. And it allows me to evaluate that if you create that situation.
Not to jinx him, but in the time been out here since spring and fall, Bauer Sharp hasn't dropped a pass. I mean, does he drop them when we're not there?
You missed the ones he drops.
Okay.
Bauer's been really good. Let's be honest, right? He's been really good. He's been a great leader. He's accountable. We're really pleased with him. But he's not perfect. And he's working on that every day, too, which is great, right? He came here knowing that he was not done developing. And that's what we appreciate about him the most.
After Harold at that star spot, what are you sort of looking for in terms of traits, in terms of the guys you want to play there? So far, it's Charles, Austin, and then C.J. Jim Coyley.
Yeah, I think you're going to see Jordan Gilbert play a little bit there as well. Great tacklers, guys that can keep the ball inside the defense. So they've got to be rough and tumble kind of guys, if you will, and have the ability to, reroute. Guys that play physical, at that position, but are athletic enough that they've got the wide field. They've got to keep the ball inside the defense. So that is a unique player, right? I mean, it is a You know, Ross, look at Ross, right? He's a, 4'3", 4'4", 40. You know, he's physically strong. He's 215 pounds now. So you're looking for, a real elite athlete that can do that. But primarily, he's got to be rough and physical and a really good tackler.
Coach, what did you add to the safety position with Cooley and Halsey in the offseason there?
Yeah, I mean, game experience and football knowledge. Those are the two things, and we didn't move off of those, and everybody that we evaluated, Jacques, it was, if they don't have those two criteria, we can't even begin this process. So they have to have snaps, real live snaps, and they have to be smart football players. We're not going to go in here and teach you the nuances of the game. We're past that. And they both have those qualities, and they have athletic ability. So what are we getting? Smart, savvy, physical players that have played a lot of college football.
Brian, P.J. Woodland seems to be a little more versatile this preseason camp, maybe versus his first year last year. He's playing a little bit at the nickel spot. Just what can he add to you guys' secondary with some of that versatility that we've seen so far?
So the first thing that you have to be able to do is what Jacques talked about, is you have to have a football IQ. He's a very smart player. So we can move him around, right? We can move him inside, outside. The field is a lot different when you're an inside corner versus an outside corner. Your landmarks are so different. And not everybody can play that position. So he brings that. He also brings an extra 12 to 15 pounds from last year. I mean, he was too light at times, and so it became an issue relative to, tackling. That's not a question. We don't want him to be in a position to be matched up against, 250-pound, tight ends every time, but he's not going to be. And so, and he can play the outside position as an SEC corner. So that's a pretty good trait to have.
Probably like your answer to Jacques' safety question, the defensive line is really shown, across the board that they can get to the quarterback. I guess, what are you seeing there with that group and the impressive, ability for them to be a different guy on every down?
Yeah, I mean, if you look carefully, where were a lot of the pressures were from inside out, not outside in. And that's a great thing, right? When you have guys that are creating issues from the inside out of the pocket instead of just rushing off the edge, where you can get a hand on them and widen it and step up. Where we're getting our best success is inside out. And so, Gooden, Guillory, Jamari played a little bit. Butler played some inside. Gabe can play a little bit inside. We can be very dynamic from an inside-out perspective as well. Obviously McKinley's big and long. So when you add that to, what we think is four guys that can play off the edge, you got a pretty dynamic pass rush now.
Hey, Coach, it looked like there was one play today. I don't know if it was instinctual or by design, but Garrett saw a hole, took it and ran. Looked like it could have gone for a bigger gain. Just that element of his game developing this offseason, what kind of effort has he put into that, and just how nice is it to see that?
Yeah, I just think
off?
learning from last year where he had those opportunities and he didn't take advantage of them. I think he recognizes the fact that the quarterback position is not just about being static and throwing the football or handing it off. You've got to be able to use your legs. He's athletic enough to do that. So I think just education and realization, playing in games where he knew he had opportunities that he needed to do that. And then, he's smart. Like he knows that, he's not going to run the ball 10, 15 times a game. But if he can give us 5, 6 carries when we need them, it's going to make him more effective.
Coach, I know it was a point of contention going into the camp, but can you talk about the run game a little bit, how you like that, being more creative and having more of a balance with run pass? How's that coming so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think we made some progress. We struggled a little bit today with movement. As you know, we're moving a lot up front, and, this is the week that we're installing some of our movement. So that becomes a little bit more difficult, on our guys up front, in handling the movement. The guys up front are pretty good. So I think more than anything else, it's just handling the movement up front. But I'm pleased with the structure of the run game, the way it's progressing, from a direct snap to shotgun, a variety of different looks. And we still have a lot to install at this point. So where am I right now with it? I feel pretty good. We've got to do a better job up front handling the movement.
Coach, over here. One of the transfers we're watching is Patrick Payton, the
Yeah.
edge rusher. What have you seen from him through the first few practices?
Yeah, I think he's, Patrick would tell you if you asked him, is that, this is a big workload for him, one that he's not quite as familiar with, and he's done a really good job of handling additional workload. And so he's rounding into that kind of football shape that we all need him to be in to play at the highest level. But he's been great. I mean, he's done everything we've asked him to do. It's a competitive situation. He knows it, but he's learning every day. And he came here because he wanted to obviously develop at a higher level. And not that they didn't develop him at Florida State, but he was looking for more of that. That's why he transferred. And we want to meet and exceed that, his wishes. And so we've spent a lot of time, and Coach Peoples spent a lot of time with him on his technique and developing his technique.
Hey, Brian, yesterday you talked a little bit about Caleb Jackson. It looked like today Harlem Berry ran behind Caden Durham second. Would you mind just to explain a little bit about the running back rotation, maybe what you've seen from Harlem so far?
I think we all know his traits, right? Very smooth. He's got elite speed, catches the ball well. But, there's a transition from high school to college. The tackling is different. The physicality is a little bit different. So, Caleb is a difficult guy. He ran through a couple of outside zone plays today where the first tackler, he just kind of shedded. Harlem is getting used to that. So there's a bit of a transition for him in high school tackling and college tackling. So this is just a process for him and for us. We really like him. We think he's going to have to play for us this year. But there's a bit of a transition there in terms of learning the physicality that comes with playing here.
The first couple of practices indoors, I noticed you were watching the offensive line intently in their drills. Like, what do you glean from that? What are you looking for, and how does it help you get that evaluation that you're looking for?
Some of it's because, we're trying to develop depth along the offensive line. It's not necessarily the starters. It might be an Ori Williams, might be a Curious Kern, a Brett Bordelon, at the center position. So my eyes go towards those guys that maybe we don't watch as much because everybody's got the eyes on the starters, and I can watch them on film. Very rarely do we get the opportunity to evaluate those younger players in a technical standpoint. So I try to keep an eye on the depth and the guys that we're going to need in case we have some injuries. So my focus is primarily on each drill, the next guy in, and what is he doing, and whether it's Colin Hurley and addressing some of Colin Hurley's, he's a very talented player. What are some of the little things that he needs to continue to do? With the wide receivers, it's, if you want to be a consistent performer, you've got to be locked in every play. We have some young guys that kind of lose it for a little bit. So I'll remind them. So that's generally what I'm trying to do throughout the practice.
Hey, Coach, over here, I know that kind of led to my question, but Van Buren and also Colin, just what you've seen from both of them and just, competition and what you want to see from them moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's the details. They're talented players. Both of them can play in the SEC, but talent is just one thing, right? You've got to be able to not have those moments where, the ball's on the ground or, you throw a pick six. I just want them to eliminate the big mistakes. Let them be athletes. Let them be who they are. They're not the same quarterback. They have different kind of traits. But what can you do? Again, I come back to this, model of consistency is about, can you stay laser focused every single snap throughout the entire practice? And so that's really what I'm trying to get out of both those guys. And they've had their moments. We need to get it to a point where it's much more consistent. All right, thank you.